Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. Good morning. It is Saturday, December 5th. Oh my gosh, we're just days away from Christmas and the end of the year. I think 2020 has been enough for all of us. Let me see where my trusty co-host is this morning. Let's see. Miss Robbie, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
No complaints. I'm excited about our special guest.
I know. They tend to think that, along the way, I'm going to tell you, in this race of 21 candidates to the United States Senate, Robbie, good morning, Don. People tend to think that, we're all enemies and we're all fighting. And that is so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. There was a lot of great candidates in this race. There was a lot of nice people. We all had a heart for Georgia. We all had a heart to serve. And, the fighting that we see in the media, I didn't see that on the campaign trail. I didn't experience that. And this morning we have a very special guest because I was so excited about her, and I'm gonna do a lightning round with her too, Robbie.
Okay.
But my definition for her, like when we did it last week, and I said, when you call Candice's name, and you said one word for Candice, I said fiery, because she is. Every time she came on the scene, it was like explosion. Her personality, she was vibrant. It was just so much about her that I really appreciate it. And I enjoyed being on the campaign trail with her. And she's a Republican. So when they think that we're all fighting, that is not the truth.
Well, the Georgia Senate 19, y'all had something in common. You weren't, the 19 of y'all were not the two handpicked darlings either of the Republicans.
The three handpicked darlings.
So you had that commonality, and I was fascinated when I read her stuff. So I'm curious, and she kind of jumped over a hurdle to be here today, which was impressive alone.
Yeah. Let's see where Miss Candice Taylor is. Good morning. Let's see. There she is. Good morning, Candice.
Good morning. How are y'all?
We are great this morning. We're good. Welcome to the broadcast, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor.
Yes. So you were on the campaign trail with me to the United States Senate. This was your first run, Candice.
It was. It was a very interesting process. And so I was listening and you saying you didn't see ugly stuff, but I saw very ugly stuff with my top two Republican GOP front runners. So,
what did you see?
Collins was followed around by a guy that Kelly Loeffler paid for to take video of him and pictures everywhere he spoke. So every time I was with Doug, there was this guy like videoing him, and then you'd see the commercials that were really ugly and nasty, and it was footage from where I was. It was crazy. So I saw some ugliness between the two of them, and then when he would speak, he would really cut her to the bone, and when she would speak, she would cut him to the bone, and I was just like, can y'all just tell us what you're gonna do, please?
Stop the fighting.
Was it attacks, like personal attacks or policy attacks?
Both.
Oh, yeah, that seems a bit unnecessary. Although, the whole thing now, with at least what I've interpreted with Trump and Biden, Democrats seem to be running on character matters. I'm curious because you're not a Democrat, and Tamara's an independent. So what do you think of that argument?
Tamara's an independent Democrat. Say it like that, Robbie, because I don't want to piss off the Democratic Party. I'm a Democrat, but I'm an independent Democrat.
Oh, Chica, I think you already pissed off the Democrats.
Piss them off any further.
I think I'm a constitutionalist. So, I've had thoughts like I probably should just qualify Democrat. It wouldn't hurt me either way. Because, really, this two-party system is not working. And we're being pitted against each other, like Tamara said earlier, and we're not that far apart. when I listen to her, do I agree with every policy? No. And she didn't agree with me on every policy. But like she said, we have a heart for Georgia, and we're tired of not being represented. We're sick of it, because in reality, both sides are corrupt. Both sides are the swamp, both. And all they care about is special interests. That's all they care about. They care about themselves. I was offered a great deal of money several times that I didn't take. They wanted to get rid of me because I'm a public school educator, and they were worried. And they should have been worried, because I had a lot of support all over the state. But people want real. They're tired of it. They're tired of the rhetoric. They want real. We've had enough. That's why Donald Trump got elected. Like him or not, he speaks with his mind. Sometimes you want to muffle him, but he does tell you what he thinks, and he's not just saying the key phrases and patting your head. And people want real on both sides of the aisle. We're sick of it. We just want somebody to tell us the truth. And I'm not, whether he tells the truth all the time or not, I don't know. But we just want someone to have integrity, and it's lacking. I was telling somebody yesterday, and I'll hush, that I had 3 candidates on the Democrat side, or four, 2 females and 2 males, that I would have voted for over Kelly Loeffler. Now, Warnock's a little bit out there for me, and so I'm going to have to, y'all, it's so hard to vote for her because I know who she is. But anyway, Tamara, Deborah Jackson, Ed Tarver, Matt Lieberman, I would have voted for them in a second over Kelly Loeffler, because they had heart and they cared about Georgia. We don't.
She was breaking up towards the end. You said they care about Georgia. I think that's the last words you said. You were breaking up towards the end.
Yeah, and I said we don't have to agree on every single issue.
But what I was excited about, Candice, is that we were able to talk through those issues, and get to a place where we could, come together on the issues, and the fighting that, like I said, I see in the media on this campaign trail amongst us as candidates, we didn't have that. Us, like Robbie said, maybe 18 of us didn't have that.
There were a couple terms you used, and I'm not a full political person, so I'm just going to ask because I want people to understand where you're coming from, what you're saying, and obviously that was the goal that Tamara invited you on the show. I'm not sure where she went, but we'll keep going. You said you're a constitutionalist, and you also said that you feel like there were constituents on both parties that were unrepresented. So for the who was your demographic, who was your constituents, and how were they unrepresented?
So before you answer that, can you explain what a constitutionalist is for those that may not understand?
You have to.
All right, it's kind of breaking out, but I heard you say, I think you want me to say what I mean by constitutionalist. Mm-hmm. So I just care about the Constitution, really. Like, that's what I care about. I care about preserving it to preserve our country, and not differing so far from it that we lose it. Because when we keep revising it and we keep doing things that are unconstitutional, we can lose the whole country. And it's not about a party. It's about, this is our government, and within frameworks of the Constitution, we have to have humanity and do what's right for humanity, but there has to be a balance. And people have gotten so far right and left that the Constitution's out the window, and we have got to get back in the middle together, like Tamara's talking about issues and making the best decisions for humanity and for our republic.
Can you give an example on either side or both of where either Democrats, Republicans, or the government, a politician, et cetera, has instituted or attempted to a policy that violated the Constitution and the impact, either side or both? That way people can have a specific example of what you're speaking about.
Well, so I'm a public school educator. I've had times where I have seen gun violence in schools, and even in my own school, and a life being taken, and the just travesty of that, and the accessibility to weapons. But on the flip side, our Constitution gives us a Second Amendment that says that we are free to bear arms. And so there has to be a balance there of educating and protecting and trying to stop these school shootings and try to stop any public, attack, domestic or foreign, on our people. But at the same time, I should be totally free to go and buy whatever weaponry I want to protect myself, because that's my constitutional right. And so there's been things passed that limit that. And for example, what type of gun you can have. And
the limit on the right to bear arms is what you're saying.
or like, okay, for example, actually I should have a constitutional carry where I can carry without having a carrying permit, which I have a carrying permit, but I should be able to carry without that. And I don't carry on, openly carry because I'm not trying to intimidate anybody, but I do carry when I'm in a situation, in a public situation. I'm a woman. Human sexuality is a real thing. I deal with it every day in my job. And I am a woman, and when I'm by myself, I'm not scared to go by myself when I have my pistol because I'm very, well versed in shooting it. But, I think education's got to come into play there, and we could fix that whole issue and people feel more comfortable and use their right like they should. But that's one issue that we're very divided on, and we don't have to be.
I'm once you're done answering the second question, which was where your constituents and your demographic, where were they unrepresented? I have a scenario for you I would love to get your opinion on, and something that happened in kind of in my backyard in Atlanta. But so who was your demographic, and where do you feel like they were unrepresented? Because the people that follow this show know Tamara really well, and she ran on three pillars. And clearly reparations was a huge part. So there's definitely an underrepresentation there. So what was yours? We want to make sure you have that opportunity to discuss your highlights.
Sure. So I obviously was trying to represent the whole state because I feel like that's lacking too. If we are going to represent Georgia as a whole state in the U.S. Senate, we have to represent everybody. So, on both sides of the aisle, we need term limits. And so I ran on term limits. I want 2 term limits. I wish that they would get that passed. I think it's going to be difficult. We're probably going to have a convention of the states to get it done because they won't leave once they get there. It must not be a very hard job because they won't leave. And never. And they love the power. They're like power mongers. I just love it. And then the other thing I ran on was a fair tax. I want to see everybody have the same skin in the game. I'm sick of the loopholes and the tax shelter for the rich. I've had enough of it. And I'm tired of middle class bearing all the weight. And one thing that does concern me is, the whole idea of going to a digital currency, which, there's people in my race even that wanted that secretly as a Republican. So anyway, but yeah, that would eradicate the middle class, which is what our country functions off of. And we have to do more to help the middle class and them being able to pay off debt and have success. And it should not bear the whole weight of the finances on our shoulders. And a fair tax would help that. So I ran on those 2 things. And of course, I'm against abortion. I'm for guns. And that's why I run Republican. I don't necessarily, the GOP treated me pretty bad. I had some wonderful chairs that treated me well, but I was blackballed by my own party many times. And because I wasn't in the top 2, and when I would get in front of the people and speak, they very much responded to me because I'm normal. Even if you don't agree, I'm normal. I pay taxes. I'm a wife, and I'm just going to fight for the country because I love it. I could stay home and be just fine. In fact, I love my little small town in Baxley that I'm from, South Georgia. But I'm running because I don't have a voice, and I'm tired of not having a voice. They don't listen and they don't care.
That's a mouthful. I can understand why people related to you. It's the first time I've heard you speak, but I can see exactly why people gravitated to you and why that would pose as a threat. I am curious, when you said you were representing all of Georgia, did you have a position on reparations?
Well, it's funny. Tamara's going to laugh, and I don't even know if she remembers when I said this, but I was listening to all this about reparations. And let me preface this with, I have family that are mixed. I have very, very best friends that are like siblings to me that are African American. I say I'm African American. I don't know what's politically correct here, but they're not African. They're American, just like me. And so I hate when I feel like that separates us in my heart. I had a DNA test done, and when I got my results back, and I'm looking through all the different things I made up of, it says Congo, Bantu, Cameroon peoples. I'm like, what is that? And so I click on it, and it takes me over to Africa, and I'm right by Kenya, and I'm like, oh, heck, I'm closer kin to Obama than anybody else is. And so he had this, oh, gosh, he was like, I knew you had some African in you. I knew it. You got big lips and a big butt. And I said, that is racist. I cannot believe you said that. He said, that's your best features. I said, oh, my gosh. He really liked black girls the whole time and married me. And he's a worship pastor, so I have to, like, anytime he says something that's not perfect, I have to, like, really give him a hard time. But my point is, I have ancestors that are from Africa too, and probably were raped, and probably have a horrific story in slavery and what happened to them. And I'm sure it's there. So reparations, I understand the heart of it. I get it. My whole thing, and why I even qualified to run, was the national debt. So my concern is the national debt. And so when I was asked this question in one of our first debates or forums, I said, when the national debt gets under control, I'm totally open to talking about it. But our national debt is so out of control. We can't keep borrowing money, or we're going to lose the dollar as a world currency. And in 3 months, we'll be a third world nation. And it's very, very fragile right now, especially with China and the one so strong, and just the whole division between us right now. It's a very scary time in America, more scary than what people realize.
So I know you have an education background. Do you have an economics background?
I don't, but guess what? I had a 99 in my economics class in college, and out of a 300-person class, and my professor said, you should consider a minor in economics. You're really good at economics. I'm like, really? I don't even like economics.
Well, the reason I ask is because there's a school of thought that, and I hear you on the debt, that makes sense. And I'm glad to hear that you were open to reparations, and thank you for sharing some of your personal family background. I mean, given you're from the South, it's not a shock that you have some ancestry that, you know, would be from African descent. That being said, some people would argue, and I think Tamara's argued this point multiple times, and forgive me if I'm wrong, Tamara, if I'm misspeaking, but the component of, you know, ADOS, which was a large component of Tamara's campaign on reparations, and people who were specifically African American receiving some type of monetary benefit for what has occurred in this country, would mean that those dollars would go back into the economy. Because currently, you know, we kind of have lower income to middle income to a very small percentage of higher income. Those wouldn't even be applicable. They're basically kind of non-productive due to what's happened historically. So those are not those. It's a negative component not coming into the economy. Whereas reparations would actually stimulate, because that entire group would receive funds, whether it's in the form of education, training, specific monetary benefits, land benefits. It could be staggered. And then that would go back into the economy, which would actually help the national debt that you were speaking of. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that argument, and I'm not saying, you know, we don't know. Hindsight's 2020, so we can't see exactly what that would do. But we can look at the COVID stimulus package, and you can look at what it did to the economy, and the president wanted that because he wanted to stimulate the economy. And I about had a heart attack because I just was thinking about the national debt, and it freaked me out. I'm just gonna be real. And of course, I got the money. I'm a public school educator, me and my husband both, and we put it back in the economy, and totally back in there immediately. We didn't hold on to it. A lot of people held on to it that were middle class because they were worried about hard times, but it didn't benefit what he was trying to do if you did. So I went ahead and put it back in. I don't see myself any better off when I got the money. And so you can argue, well, it's not as much or whatever, but our dollar is in fact less stable right now. And so I understand the thoughts behind it. I'm not saying that it wouldn't benefit those people. I'm not saying, you know, I can't foresee the future. I just know right now in this moment, I'm not taking it off the table. I'm not saying that it's not needed. I'm not saying it's not owed. I'm not getting into all those issues, because those are very emotional issues, and we can argue either way. I'm just saying that as far as as the national debt goes, I want that paid down, and I'm very concerned about it. And so I'm not really open to anything unless we start cutting. If we can start cutting other things to get that, I'm open to that. But we really have to.
Or reallocating. What about that, Candice? Reallocating those dollars. You say cutting. You just want to get the debt down. Is that what you're saying? I can't hear her. Can you hear me?
It's breaking up.
I can hear everybody. I'm not sure. I think, and I don't want to misspeak for you, Candice, but I think your main concern is truly the debt, and you didn't, from what she shared, she didn't see a big impact on the stimulus that was provided, the $1,200, even though her and her family put it back into the economy. I mean, so there's a second scenario, but I'll wait. What do you think the reason your numbers? Obviously, there was huge opposition against both you and Tamara from both parties, with the front runners being the chosen folks who got the majority of marketing resources, media coverage, etc. But did you foresee your numbers as what they were, if you want to share them? And why do you think what was the impact, since you were connecting with people? Why do you think your numbers came out as such?
Well, my numbers went up and down all night on the election night, and I actually signed an affidavit about that. They were, at one point, I was at 71,000 at 5 a.m., and I'm at like 41,000 now. So and I watched them drop. They went up like 22,000 at one point, like in number, from like 20,000 to like 40, whatever. And then they went down 25,000 within like 10 to 30 seconds. So I watched my numbers fluctuate all night. And that in itself is what makes me believe that there was something happening. I don't know what. I don't know if it was an algorithm. I don't know. But your numbers don't go down. They just go up. And we were on several different sites, my whole team, and we were seeing it go up. I was on Google. My husband was on Fox News, and it was all this live feed. We had like 7 different live feeds open on different sites, and we all saw them going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Ed Tarver's do it too. And that was another thing, because Ed was right below me, and I was watching him because he should have been at the top, and he wasn't. And I kept watching his numbers go up and down. And so that was concerning. But as far as my support, I'm very proud of 41,000 people. I've never ran for anything. I'm from South Georgia. I was the only one from South Georgia running. I put 50,000 miles on my car. Doug Collins called me. He called me about 3 weeks ago, and he said, "You outworked all of us." And I know that I did. I mean, I really did. I worked myself to death. I was about in the grave. I was so tired when it was over, just working my job and leaving and going to Atlanta and coming home at 3 a.m. and going to sleep and getting up and going to work at 7. It was very taxing on my body and my family too. But when I went and paid $5,220 to qualify, that's a bunch of money to me. And when I qualified, I mean, I was going to work as hard as I could. And I was all in. I'm like that. I go all in something. And that's what I did. And I've made friends all over. I've got billionaire friends. I've got friends who don't have jobs, who are dirt poor. I have a whole vast array of them. It was who I spoke to that I resonated with. They want to be represented. They're tired of it. They're sick of the swamp. They're sick of both sides. It's not that, I mean, some are like true blue, red Republicans, I guess I should say. But, most people just want goodness in their country and to be represented. They really do. They're more in the middle like we are. They're not so outlandish. So, I mean, I had a wonderful experience. I don't know, Tamara, I guess she did too. But I had a wonderful, wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. God really grew me as a speaker. He grew me in my faith with him and hearing his voice more clearly. He grew me in relationships with people. And I think that's what's lacking in government, is they don't have a relationship with each other. They're just fighting. And it's like a really bad marriage they can't get out of. And some of it's domestic violence, the way they act. So I think...
A lot of what you're saying, actually, we had Mr. Bartell here last week, Saturday, and he pretty much reiterated a lot of what you're saying in terms of the two-party system, how not productive it is, and that there's lack of representation. What I'm curious, what would you do different than Ms. Loeffler if she won? And have you heard from her? I'm just curious if you've heard after the race from the Republican Party.
I haven't. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. I've had a U.S. congressman reach out to me asking me to endorse her. I've had one of her people reach out to me and ask me to come and speak at an event. She was going to be there. And I'm not against Kelly in that. I mean, obviously, I want her to win because I want to keep the Senate red. So at least the Republican Party could put pressure on her to do the right thing. But I think she was the best choice. I think she was the worst out of the 6 of the Republicans. And she bought her seat. she's a billionaire. She doesn't represent the majority of Georgia. And I got so sick of hearing her say that she was the American dream. It's not the American dream to marry an older man that's a millionaire, a billionaire. This isn't Pretty Woman. That's not American dream. The American dream is working as hard as you can and achieving on your own. And I'm a very strong woman, and it kind of insulted me that she uses that terminology in reference to herself and her success. So, I just see her. I've researched her. I've watched how she's given money to everybody in the Senate, Democrats and Republicans. Why? Why is she giving them max donation? Because she can control their vote. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing for me to think about her going up there and controlling the whole Senate. She's the wealthiest member there. And that's what I want gone. And it's not any fault of having money. I mean, that is the American dream, to be wealthy. And I think, it's a wonderful thing if you go and you don't make more money for yourself, but she's already proven what she's going to do with stock trading and owning the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, it's a bad thing. But I'll say on the flip side about Warnock, he said that Jesus was a Marxist.
Hold on before you get to Warnock. I definitely want to hear it. But why do you, given everything you've shared, why was she selected by the Democratic Party to be the front runner?
The Republicans, she wasn't the front runner. The Republican Party wanted Doug Collins. And our wonderful governor, Brian Kemp, wanted Kelly. So, and his people that were so devoted to him, which aren't anymore, they were very loyal to him, but they really wasn't supporting Kelly. They just said that with their mouth. But I promise you, I went all over the state and she had no support. She had less support than me. And I don't know how she won. I don't know. It floored me.
I'm sorry.
It floored me too. Let me jump in right here because we're gonna have our next guest. Can y'all hear me okay? Can you hear me okay, Candice? Okay, good. We're gonna have our next guest in just a few moments. But it floored me too that she did as well as she did. I was not expecting her to do that well at all. So how did she win? We really don't know. But Candice, before you go, I just want to do a quick lightning round with you. This is something we've done with all of our other guests, and we're going to do it with the next guest as well. But I want you to give me, I'm going to run through the list. And I hated the lightning rounds when we did this on the campaign trail because I don't think that fast, Candice. So if you take a few seconds, trust me, I understand. But I'm going to run through the names of the candidates. I want you to give me one word to describe them based on, what you think. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Ed Tarver.
Classy.
Raphael Warnock.
Fake.
Richard Dean Winfield.
Eccentric.
Brian Slowinski.
Fighter.
Al Bartel.
Wise.
Alan Buckley.
Brilliant.
Michael Todd Green.
Out there.
Valencia Stovall.
Sweet.
John Green Fortune.
Oh, I might have got him mixed up with somebody else. He's the one that's out there. He's the one that's out there.
Rod Mack.
I don't know him.
Me either. Doug Collins.
Career politician.
Derek Grayson.
Wonderful.
Annette Davis Jackson. Ooh.
I love her too. Hold on, I gotta get the right word for her. A breath of fresh air.
A. Wayne Johnson.
I like Wayne. Oh, let me think. Typical.
Kelly Loeffler.
Crook.
Deborah Jackson.
Wise.
Jamesia James.
Thoughtful.
Tamara Johnson Shealey.
I feel like me and you have like a sister connection with being feisty. So I want to say feisty.
Matt Lieberman.
Calm.
Joy Felicia Slade.
I didn't talk to her as much, but she seemed confident.
Candice, it was such a pleasure to be on the campaign trail to the United States Senate with you. I really felt a bond with you along the way. And it was so weird because you and I had never met before. And I was like, I like her. So I would have voted for you too.
I would have voted for you. So one day we'll work together.
Yes, yes. I don't think this is over for you, Candice, because I see a bright future ahead in politics.
Well, thank you. We'll see. God will have to tell me to do it. I'm very tired, but I do think 100% you better run again and push that Democrat Party. You can do it.
Yeah, I think that's where we really kind of line up, because you're pushing on your side and I'm pushing on mine.
We're gonna get back to the middle and get to represent America and stop this crap.
Amen. Amen.
I'm
hey,
sorry.
Candice, before you go, do that slogan. You say God, guns, and something. You always do this whole thing. Say that before you go, Candice.
So I am going to go to the U.S. Senate, and I'm going to represent Jesus, guns, and babies.
She said that along the way all the time. It's like, I knew Candice was coming with her line. I think we all had a little line there.
Yep. Drain the swamp. I said that, well, real quick, I'd always say the president said to drain the swamp, and he meant the whole thing.
I'm sorry I cut you off on giving your opinion of Warnock, Candice. I would have loved to hear it. Maybe you can come back, or if
no, go ahead before we go.
It's real quick. I just heard. I've researched him extensively, and he didn't come. I don't like that they didn't come and honor and debate with us and do forums with us, any of them, the three of them. And so that turned me off initially. And then he called Jesus a Marxist. He honored Fidel Castro in his church, and he's justified abortion with scripture. And that really turns me off. And I know the other side of abortion and the part of the mother dying and risking her life and being raped and all that. That's sensible. But justifying it with scripture is just blasphemous to me. And so that's my thing with Warnock, and he's not real, and he's not, anyway, neither one of them are good candidates. They're the worst two that we had, honestly. But here we are with money.
Here we are, Candice.
With money.
wow.
Candice, thank you again. You are a friend to this broadcast. You are invited back whenever you have anything you want to share. Come back, join us. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and I definitely want us to stay connected.
You too. And hey, I'm writing a book, and I'm writing about all my stuff, and I want you to write something for it, and I'm going to call it Jesus, Guns, and Babies.
Okay.
And I haven't announced that till today. I haven't told that till today. So anyway.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I actually wrote a book too in 2018. It's called Faith, Purpose, and Politics, Running the Race of My Life. So I get it. And you have to write this journey. God gives it to you to write it. So I so look forward to connecting with you there.
I'm going to email me that book. I'm going to buy it.
Awesome. Will do. And I'll be in touch with you real soon, Candice.
All right. Sounds good. Bye, girls.
Nice to meet
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
She's sincere.
Yeah, I told you I loved her. When we were out there together, it was like, I don't know her, but I like her.
You know what's funny? Her paradigm is fascinating. What's funny is I'm thinking of Dominique when he said, I like my racism, not that I feel at all she's racism overt, but what I appreciate about her is that it is what it is. She shares, her position. I would have loved to hear her commentary on the Rayshard Brooks situation with that, the gun takeover, the right to bear arms, and the results, what happened with the little girl who was killed near the site and her position on that. But I don't know how.
We'll have her back. We actually have our next guest. I'm super excited because look who's joined us, Miss Deborah Jackson. Good morning, Miss Deborah. Let me take this banner down. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's Deborah.
We all call you Deborah. Trust me, I call you Deborah from the beginning. So it is Deborah Jackson.
Yes. It's spelled the same, but my mother said it's Deborah, not Deborah.
Okay, Deborah Jackson. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. And it was such a pleasure to run alongside you as well on the campaign trail. Now, you were the surprise. You know that, right? Nobody saw you coming.
Yeah, so I've been told.
You got to tell us how you did it. Let's start there. And then I'm going to go through your lightning round.
Okay. Yeah, well, basically, it definitely was a grassroots campaign. And, because of the pandemic, it wasn't possible to get out and go to a lot of the places, where I would have gone to traditionally. So basically, it was by word of mouth. Everybody that I met, talked to, texted, emailed, I said, please share my information with your family and friends. And that was really the methodology that we used. We did towards the end a few radio spots in different markets, and just really focus on getting the word out. I think part of it was that people really were interested in voting for a woman, and specifically a Black woman.
Mm-hmm. And I said that. I said she was the first Democratic woman on the ballot. That was strategic, Miss Deborah Jackson. You fell right in place, because people that didn't, they wanted a woman. They wanted to see a Black woman. So you're right. I believe you fell right in place, and you were the surprise.
For those people who don't know, because there were so many candidates, you are a Democrat. And what were your numbers? Because are you currently the mayor of Lithonia?
No, I completed my service of 8 years in January of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a political. You've been in the game.
I have been in the game. I served as the mayor of Lithonia for 8 years. I was on the city council for an additional 2 years. And so during my tenure as mayor, I was very involved with the Georgia Municipal Association, which represents all 538 cities across Georgia. So I think that, added to the name recognition. And I think people really took the time to research the candidates, so it wasn't just being the first Democrat, on the list. And that was just, I guess, by everybody who qualified and being listed alphabetically is, how that turned out. But I think that people really took the time to do some research on the candidates, and not everyone was particularly excited about, supporting the person that the party seemed to be promoting and donated all the resources to. And so if I think,
why do you think? No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I think if you looked at the list overall, that all 22 candidates received votes, so that people had a base of support, and people were looking for some options.
Why do you think the Democratic Party did choose Warnock? Reverend Warnock, I should say.
Yeah, well, I would say, other than name recognition, the fact that he's a pastor of Ebenezer, I'm not really sure, because I never really heard a real explanation, other than they thought that he could win. And I said, with those kinds of resources, I think any one of us, might have been able to actually win the race, because I think when he started, the polls, had him probably about 8%. So he wasn't that really, well known in Georgia.
And how do you feel about that? Because that bothers me, Deborah. I'm gonna say your name right moving forward. I promise.
Not a problem,
Deborah. That really bothers me, because we're all Democrats, and it's like a primary. When you have a primary, it is just the right thing to do, to not have the party engage, and to have the party and operatives inside the party, big names, come out and endorse as if the rest of us don't exist. That angered me, and that's the part about the party that I fight, because I think it's dead ass wrong. Just let me say that. It's wrong.
Yeah, I think that there should have been a process that once everybody who was interested actually qualified, that it would have made sense to kind of, bring everybody together and sort of have a process where people could present, what their credentials were, what their platform was, and basically, at that point, make some decision. But, it was really a foregone conclusion that certain people decided that he was the one. And
The
so
party should remain neutral.
yeah, as opposed to remaining neutral. So, for example, in Newton County, the Democratic Party there, I think, really had the, one of the fair processes where they did a mailer and they listed all 8 candidates on that, and believe that, the voters should, had an opportunity to decide. The other counties, much, much later on their website, sort of listed everybody, but it was clear where they were leading in terms of, official support.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a Republican, Candice, on the show before you joined, and she shared that some of the things she saw behind the scenes, weren't, well, basically that the party was a little rough on each other with personal attacks and so on. What was your experience? I mean, and she also mentioned that the front runners, the darlings of each party, didn't even show up to debates. What was your experience?
Yeah, well, I would say that on the Republican side, so even though you had, I guess, state representatives, sort of taking a position between Collins and Loeffler, like for the most part, they really sort of let them battle it out between the two of them. Even so, there were some other Republicans, that didn't get much exposure, but it seemed, at least, from the outside, that there was a more open platform for them as opposed to on the Democratic side. Because I think it really was hard to raise money. It was hard to kind of get any exposure or recognition. And a few of the broadcasts would mention, oh, there's, 22 candidates in this race, but, only, 3, 4 people would actually be named. And then I guess, and so in terms of at the end of the race, I mean, a very interesting thing has happened. So while I was actually the second Democrat in the race and the 4th candidate overall, there were a couple of reports on CNN and the Washington Post that had Lieberman showing as the 4th candidate. And so it's almost like there was an effort to kind of erase my presence, as a woman and as a Black woman. So, so that's been a little concerning. Like, how could that happen when I had many more, almost 3 times as many votes that Lieberman received?
Right. The numbers are on the screen right now.
Yeah, the numbers
were
don't
over.
lie. Deborah Jackson, we see you. You were definitely in 4th place in this race. And that's sad because I can see them, the media wanting to erase your race. I can see that. But yeah, you fared extremely well. Like I said, you were truly the surprise in this race. Like nobody saw you coming.
I had asked Candice, had she heard from the Loeffler campaign? And I'm curious. We also asked her like what her platform was, her 3 primary. So I would love if you're comfortable. Have you heard from the Democrats or the Warnock campaign? And I don't know if you want to take an opportunity to share what your platform was.
Yeah, I have not heard from them at this particular point. I understand that they will actually be in Lithonia this afternoon, visiting with some of the small businesses in town. But in terms of my platform, I would say my primary concern was and continues to be the issue of access to healthcare, providing relief for small businesses and families as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and addressing the historic inequities that exist in employment, housing, healthcare, education, criminal justice system, all the things that, we've been concerned about and that were the objects of the protests that took place during the summer.
Are you for reparations?
Oh, absolutely. They're long overdue.
I wasn't aware that another candidate was actually outwardly for reparations. Obviously, I can see where the third component of your campaign would lead to reparations. Did you outwardly say I am for reparations?
Yes, well, there are a number of interviews that I've had. I definitely have spoken in favor of reparations as a doctoral candidate. Some of my research was around the issue of reparations. So, it's clearly is something that Black people are entitled to, and it needs to happen. I think during one of our debates, I talked about the fact that there is HR 40 in terms of calling for the Congress to have a study commission on the issue of reparations. And while the first time a hearing was actually held was last June, after 30 years, my view is that the commission needs to be established, but there needs to be a time frame set on that. So we're not spending 30 years doing research. A lot of groups have been actively involved in terms of, providing different solutions and recommendations. So I think that, action can be brought, within a reasonable amount of time.
We had Mr. Bartell, who also ran. He didn't, reach the numbers, but he ran as an independent. But he was in the top 10. He was on last week, and I asked him what would he do differently if he was, in the race against Kelly Loeffler and won. And obviously, you've got this incredible background. You were a mayor of Lithonia. You clearly are a veteran politician. So, there are a bunch of people who have said on this show, even Mr. Coleman, who's an advocate out of South Fulton and for City of Atlanta, heavily involved in criminal justice reform, that, if he had the resources that, it was anybody's race. So I'm curious, if you had the resources that were pumped into the Warnock campaign and you were sitting right now in his position, possibly winning, what would you do?
Yeah, well, I would say this in terms of expanding the outreach to voters. I mean, because I think that was really the biggest challenge in terms of letting people know, who I am and what I stood for. Because I think that once people actually saw my record, because I've actually done some things, having been in office. So I have a record that I can point to of accomplishments, not just things that I've talked about, but things I've actually done. And so it's really helping to share that information and helping the voters understand that, that they do have some real choices and that who we elect for office is important, that it just can't be a popularity contest, that we really need to have people who have some substance and credibility so we can get the results that we say we want.
Deborah, let's go through a quick lightning round. Let's lighten up the conversation just a little bit. So here's the lightning round that we do. So I'm going to call all the names of the candidates, and I want you to give me one word, but most of y'all have given me more than one, but I get it. So I'm going to go through the list, and you give me a word to describe the candidate. Ready?
Okay.
All right. Doug Collins.
Typical.
Derek Grayson.
Nice.
Annette Jackson.
Interesting.
Wayne Johnson.
I don't know him because he dropped out of the race. So I had never had a chance to meet him.
Kelly Loeffler.
Not honest.
Candice Taylor.
Nice.
Jamesia James.
Yeah, I didn't meet her either.
Tamara Johnson Shealey.
Oh, committed.
Matt Lieberman.
Cocky.
Joy Felicia Slade.
I didn't meet her.
Ed Tarver.
Serious.
Raphael Warnock.
What's a good word?
You are a veteran politician.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking in the context of, having interacted with them, during the debates and stuff like that. It was limited interaction. Smooth.
Richard Dean Winfield.
Intellectual.
Brian Slowinski.
Odd.
Al Bartel.
Independent.
Alan Buckley.
Alan. Detailed.
Michael Todd Green.
I'm not recalling him.
Valencia Stovall.
Passionate.
John Fortune.
Idealistic.
Rod Mack.
Oh, he was a write-in. I actually did run into him. Yeah, seemed like a nice guy. Nice.
It's funny how we had two of those Democrats on the ballot, Jamesia James and Joy Felicia Slade.
Yeah, I never saw them.
No, none of us ever saw them.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know it was just me that there was some events that I had missed. Yeah, I never even saw a picture of Joy Slade. Last week, I actually saw a sign by Jamesia James over there in Atlanta, and I said, "Oh, she actually put some stuff out." But yeah, I did see Jamesia's picture. She worked for John Lewis, but I don't recall them ever participating in any of the forums, unless she participated in the first one that the Atlanta Black Chamber did. But other than that, she did not. Okay, yeah, but then I never saw her.
We never saw her.
Okay. Yeah, if she got a lot of votes. So
what do you think that says about the voters here in Georgia? Because for Joy Felicia Slade to get votes and for Jamesia James to get as many votes as both of them got, it was, what do you think that says about voters here in Georgia?
Yeah, well, I think that everybody sort of has, a network of people. So, obviously they did something that people decided either, they knew them, they knew something about them, someone told them. So, but I think that, the whole thing of helping to educate the electorate is something that is really important. And so, as we have this runoff election, that where very few people turn out, but primarily because at this point it's going to decide the control of the Senate. I think it's important that the two Democrats get elected, so to at least provide some balance and that there be some hope of any Biden programs, getting through, because otherwise it's just going to be gridlock for the next 2 years.
So I take it you'll be voting for Reverend Warnock then?
Yes, and also John Ossoff, as well as Daniel Blackman. There's a runoff for the Public Service Commission. So
we're familiar. We're familiar with Mr. Blackman. He's been on the show before.
Okay,
all
right.
He's probably the only reason I'm dragging myself to vote again.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think he would really be good, because initially I didn't realize that his race was going to be in a runoff, because when I looked at the numbers earlier, Bubba was ahead. So I'm glad that he's been able to push that forward. So, but again, like I said, so not that we necessarily have the two strongest candidates, but we need those seats. We definitely need those seats, and I think it's important that people will come out so that there would be some balance in the Senate to be able to get anything done.
Your loyalty, quote unquote, I'm not sure how other people would view it. That's the only word that came to my mind, to the party, and making sure that I guess there's not gridlock, as you said, right? Your position. What do you think for those folks, and I may even be one of them, who think, the Democratic Party put someone in front, and I would even argue you are more qualified than Raphael. I mean, you've been a mayor, you've on the show you've just reviewed in the last 10 minutes, that you have specific accomplishments that actually coincide with government. Your platform, ironically, is a platform that is very similar to Tamara's. It seems similar to Raphael Warnock, who won't come out for reparations and who doesn't have a specific Black agenda. So it's different than Reverend Warnock's. What do you think? What do you think people who feel like this two-party system that kind of just rigs and pumps resources into not the best candidate for whatever reason, who hasn't even reached out to you, why do you think someone who thinks like me should show up to vote just to avoid gridlock?
Okay.
Because there's an argument that the gridlock may actually lead to a real progress instead of the illusion of progress.
Well, I mean, I would say if we look at it from a historical perspective, gridlock has not led to progress. I mean, I agree. I mean, I do have concerns in terms of how the Democratic Party, continues to kind of come in and select candidates and not always, the most qualified candidate. Because I think, anyone with those types of resources could make a strong case and run a very good campaign. But I think it's looking more at the long-term goal of, we know what the history of Mitch McConnell has been, as the leader of the Senate. So it's really more looking at the interests of the community in terms of how do we get some things done. We know that the legislative process is not perfect by any chance, but I believe that in this particular case, it can make a difference in terms of having a more level playing field by, having a 50-50 Senate with the Vice President elect Kamala Harris, being the tiebreaker in those instances. So I'm just saying, so just based on the fact that we know with Mitch McConnell remaining the head of the Senate, if he has a majority, he will be putting brakes on anything positive happening. Just look at what's been happening with the COVID relief. Since April, they have not taken any votes, although the House has presented a number of plans. They've reduced the plan several times, and still no relief has been provided. And so, we need to be able to change that dynamic.
I guess I'm trying to follow.
Yes, I would just say it's really looking at the long-term game and not just the immediate, but I think it's important that we continue to raise questions, within the party. And I think that ultimately at some point that, there will be an opportunity for, some other parties, to eventually emerge. Because I think the one thing that the Democrats and Republicans agree on is, keeping it locked up as a two-party system. And if we look back historically, there have been any number of other parties that have been on the scene. And as people become more informed and educated, I think that we can begin to see that happen. But right now, this is the game that we have. So let's use it to our advantage in the interest of the community.
Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. Miss Deborah Jackson, I said it right. You are a friend to this broadcast. You are welcome back anytime. I know you're not done with politics. I think it's in your blood. So we're just going to wait and see, unless you have something you want to share. Are you coming back? Will we see more of you? Because we know I don't believe you're done.
Yeah, well, I definitely plan to come back. It's just a question of, I haven't decided how at this particular point. And I would say, I see myself as a public servant. And so the issue is, how can I best do that? And so I'm looking at some options. And so 2022 is another opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But I'll keep you posted.
Yes. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. Like I said, you were totally the surprise. Nobody saw you coming. You came right up the middle. So I applaud you on your efforts. And it was great to run alongside you in this race to the United States Senate. Yeah, well, likewise. And I look forward to continuing our conversations. And there's a lot of work to be done. So it's not just about running for office, but it really is about, how do we continue to serve the community? Amen. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you. All right, thanks. Have a great day. Take care. Best wishes for the holiday. Thank you. Same to you. All right, bye now. Robbie, this was a great broadcast, all women.
You know, I'm so flabbergasted with the options. How, she was very diplomatic. Deborah was very diplomatic, which I guess to be expected. She's a seasoned politician, but isn't it flooring to you that the party has not reached out to her with over 300,000 votes?
They haven't reached out, and let's do the math. If you do the math, Robbie, all the Republicans, just Doug Collins and Loeffler alone, just the numbers for the two of them is enough to win. And the fact that they haven't reached out to her, to me, I don't know about Matt. We haven't had Matt on the broadcast yet. Hopefully we will. But, the fact that they're not reaching out, I don't know what that says. They don't give a damn about our voters. The constituency that voted for us, these people, they don't count. They don't need them. Are they trying to pander to the Republicans? They're trying to reach, bring those people in and forget about us. I don't know what is going on.
I don't know, but when you said look at the numbers, Kelly Loeffler is at 25%, which is 1.2 million and change. Doug Collins 980, so almost another million. So right there, you're over 2 million. Right there alone, just between the top two Republicans. So Reverend Warnock, 1,600,000. So if he were to get your support, Deborah's support of 300,000, your support of 100,000, Matt Lieberman, a Democrat, 136,000. Now we're actually getting to a level playing field. But this is what happens when campaigns are bought. Because he doesn't, as Mr. Bartell said, he doesn't have to. He's not going to. But the question is why? Here she is, Deborah, saying we're about community. And she's still supporting the Democratic Party, which to me, that's a bit, I don't know. I'll drag myself to vote for Daniel Blackman because I know him and I know he's honest. But we literally, she even called Reverend Warnock, I think she called him smooth. It's a very polite term, to express what she was trying to say.
When Al Bartell said he was disgusting. So.
But I'm just shocked why we have this blind loyalty to worse and worsen. What is that? Why are we participating in a system that is breaking us?
Mm-hmm. And before we go, Robbie, I want to share this screen because see, this is what I want people to take away. Civil rights groups feel left out of the Biden transition. How do we hold these people accountable when they get to Washington and they're not taking, Biden is not bringing in the diversity,
He probably feels like I got Kamala. Like I brought in Kamala, this is sufficient. I'm the front runner. I won the race and that's the whole thing. He doesn't have to. Mm-hmm. But I still don't understand, even with what Deborah shared, when she says I'm looking at the long term, I don't know. That seems short-sighted. When the Senate race, make sure what is that going to promise? That we're not going to have gridlock? Everyone thought the same thing with Obama, and really the Obama effect was Trump. So are we really thinking long-term? Mm-hmm. Everybody's saying these two systems are a problem. Both parties are saying, Candice just called her own front runner a crook. Mm-hmm. Deborah just called her own front runner smooth. Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with him, and I've had a problem with Warnock from the beginning because he will not he stands in that pulpit and does not have a Black agenda, specific Black agenda, stand in that pulpit and does not talk about reparations, does not have a plan for our repair, for our redress. I had a problem with him from the very beginning.
It's very odd because anyone that understands economics knows that when you have a specific massive sub-demographic that is not able to access to lead productive lives due to historical issue, that will impact economy. So a Black agenda in essence is valuable for all of us, for all of the community collective. To your credit, you had one. To Deborah's credit, she was expressing the need for criminal reform, the need to value small businesses. She expressed a specific racial disparities. But she's still sitting here saying the same party that worked against her actively, that didn't support her, she's going to go and vote for their front runner, who is smooth.
Yeah.
I'm
not loyal to the party, and that's why they don't like me. I'm not loyal to the party. You know, I really, if Candice Taylor was on that ticket, I'd be telling everybody, let's vote for Candice, because I'm not loyal to the party. You know, I want to put people in. I want to see people in office who have a heart to serve all of us, who are intentional, you know, about serving all of us, and how we get to some balance, some place in the middle, because we're not going to always agree. We're not. But where do we find that balance? Where do we find that middle ground? With Warnock and Ossoff, they're just totally saying, you know, I won't talk about Ossoff because that's not my race. But I will say with Warnock, he's just dismissive of the rest of the candidates in this race. Like, as if, I don't need y'all. Bruh, you need us. All of us.
And if he truly wants to win, it is in the best. Even if he didn't want to do it, sometimes as a leader, you do what you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. The question is he being controlled? Is the Democratic Party saying, don't reach out to them? You know, the remainder, it's a very odd circumstance right now.
Very. And it goes back to Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. You know, when Hillary was the front runner, they just, you know, these Bernie supporters were serious. You should have grabbed them.
I was one of them.
I was one of them. I was a Bernie crack. You know, you should have grabbed us, and y'all didn't. And you're making the same mistake again.
Well, I, you know, there's a saying to have loyalty, but not beyond your own well-being. Like at that point, it becomes some, you know, anti-productive against yourself. And to have a blind loyalty like that, and to understand, to blatantly say and recognize, and to go along with, I have worse or worsen, so I'm going to choose worse. I don't know about that. And I think that's actually short term. I think it's a very fear-based position that we've got to organize this Senate so that we can pass things off when there's no guarantee of true meaningful change. And what is already occurring, this is an indication. What is occurring right now in the Democratic Party is an indication of how things may continue. It doesn't mean they will get better. It doesn't.
How do we hold them accountable? How do we hold them accountable? They're not telling us they're going to do certain things. Like, I can't support Warnock, and I will not support Warnock if he does not have a specific agenda for reparations. You cannot not have an agenda for reparations. You can't and get my support.
I would feel a lot better about putting my skin in the game, my vote, if I heard that the Democratic Party was getting with Reverend Warnock, who is the front runner and on the ticket, and John Ossoff for that matter, and contacting every candidate that had over 20,000 votes and creating a commission based on that agenda so that it was inclusive. That would make me feel like, you know what? I have some skin in the game because what I want is on the table. And now when he does win, if he wins and the Senate has these seats, there will be something in the Biden administration, which is already being questioned for lack of diversity, the choosing of appointments. I think Aaron Brockovich, a huge whistleblower, penned an article in The Guardian, really Joe Biden, because one of his placements is completely a non-environmentalist, but he's supposedly wanting green practice. So we already have indications something is wrong here. And until that changes, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I don't know, you know, there's a big argument that sometimes things have to get really bad for meaningful change to occur. Trump. Because how are we going to figure out what exactly the Democratic Party is doing if they're not even honest now? It's difficult to decipher now where the money goes, how things work, how the hidden dark money is, the campaigns, and how they're manipulated. Everybody who's come on this show is talking about campaign manipulation on both sides.
I'm with you, Robin.
No, these are people versed. You know, it's not you saying it alone. It's people, 3-4 different candidates have said it. Sometimes a little more politically savvy, sometimes a little more careful, sometimes outright, but they're all saying it.
Mm-hmm. 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 Well, somebody just put a comment in, and I, she says it's about getting Mitch McConnell going to the back of the room now. Kelly surely not going to be for black folks. I don't know what Kelly will do. Kelly, Kelly co-sponsored a piece of legislation that I actually just looked at, that's studying black men and black boys. And she was actually a co-sponsor on this legislation. So I don't know what Kelly will do. And I don't know why Kelly did that. And I don't even know what that legislation is all about, but Kelly co-sponsored that legislation. So we don't know what Kelly will do. We don't know what the Republicans will do. I was glad to have Candice on because I think that we put all the Republicans in the same boat and say they will or they won't do, we see what our Democrats are doing. I'm at a place now where I'm of the mindset of Ice Cube. Like Ice Cube is like, let's play politics. The Democrats and the Republicans, let's play them. They playing us, let's play them.
I think you hit it on the nail, Tamara, when you said accountability. To the commentator's, point about organizing the Senate. Here's the thing with Donald Trump, it's very easy to say, no, Mr. Trump, you've done this, because he's blatant. It's exactly what Dominique Huff stated. I like my racism over. Some people say that Southern hospitality is confusing because someone's smiling in your face but doing something behind. Some people say that. I'm just using as an example. To me, there's a component of that in politics. The Republicans, we kind of do know a little bit of what Kelly's going to do, but we can hold her accountable based on this action. It's easier to decipher. With our Democrats, I'm sorry, the way that they're running things behind the scenes, I'm not saying the Republicans aren't, but the way that even Bernie Sanders, was shut down to some degree, and now he's coming forward, the way that Obama strategically placed, the way that we have 21 candidates in one race, and the two you mentioned, Jamisa James and the other lady, nobody knew who these people were, but they got 40,000 and another round. Well, was that to divide up the votes? So when people are operating covert and overt is more difficult to decipher. Now we got to figure out, what are you doing all behind? And to some degree, Atlanta is a great example of this. Our mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, ran on an affordable housing platform. I am not at all suggesting that her opponent, who I believe was Mary Norwood, and there might have been more, would have done any better. I'm not. But would have she been easier to hold accountable? Yeah. Because it's easier to see her actions, just like it's easier to see Trump's. We have a mayor right now where the whole city is basically gentrifying, where we're going to spend a ton of money to fix this when the city actually caused it and it was avoidable. And her platform was literally on affordable housing. And who delivered that? Southwest Atlanta, my neighborhood. So be careful what you ask for.
I want to show you Jamesia got almost 100,000 votes, 94,406.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Votes.
I misspoke.
That she got a tremendous amount of votes. And Joy Felicia Slade, who didn't even exist at all. And Jamesia did have a website. We don't know who she is, but she did have a website and she had some signs. So do I believe she was a plant? Yes. Honestly, yes. But she got almost 100,000 votes. So there's a lot to be said about how we vote as Georgians. I think some of it, people see women, they see an ethnic name, people are looking for certain things when they don't know. They're like, well, she sounds black, or this is a woman, this is a Democratic woman, black, whatever the dynamics are, people were looking for certain, for her to get damn near as many votes as I did, and I earned, trust me, every one of mine, I'm sure. Anybody that voted, 94,000 people that voted for her didn't know who she was because she didn't campaign. So Joy Felicia Slade didn't even exist. So you know what? I'm just at a place now. I want us to learn how to use, as we wrap up, Robbie, this is a great 15 minutes extra. I wanted to give it to us. I want us to learn how to use our vote as a double-edged sword. I want us to learn how to use that thing for good and then to use that thing against people when they don't do good. And I don't think we know I don't think we understand voting. I think we were taught and we were given this right to vote, and we just keep giving it away. I don't want us to continue to give that vote away anymore. People got to earn it. And if you don't earn it, you don't get it. And I think that is how we control this Democratic Party, is by showing people and teaching people. Robert, this is something that you and I want us to kind of dive into in 2021. How do we use this vote more strategically and not just run to the polls and give it away? I'm not loyal to a party. It's about the agenda and getting stuff done. So how do we teach people moving into 2021 how to use this vote strategically? Because it's a weapon. It could be used to get us what we want, and it could be used to make sure we get rid of people. And I think we got to do better. And this next generation is very receptive to that. This older generation, they got something to lose. We don't, Robbie. We don't have nothing to lose.
Well, you said it, you know, Ice Cube and his contract with America, the word contract is very powerful. You know, it is a term that means it's enforceable. So he's correct. There needs to be some contractual obligations, and I'm not sure what that comment was, but
he said you ladies got to get a bigger platform. Get with these candidates. I just found Tamara right before the election. Thank you. And Laurent says we're going to get you in a seat soon, sister. Yeah, we just got to learn. I want us to really be intentional, Robbie, moving into 2021 about teaching our people who are watching and just people how to use this vote. It's a weapon.
And the same way that we're trying to remove qualified immunity for dirty cops, you know, protecting dirty cops, we should remove qualified immunity for politicians. Politicians right now cannot be sued for negligence, for corruption, they cannot be removed immediately from office for unethical behavior. And that's a problem. When you run on campaign promises, and a contract is enforceable, meaning you make these promises within this time frame. If you do not deliver, there's an enforceable renegotiation because you have failed to deliver. Right now, City of Atlanta, affordable housing, we have homeless people everywhere, and people are putting rocks under bridges to stop our homeless people from living under the bridges. Why? Because the highway went on fire 2 years or whatever it was, supposedly, allegedly from a homeless person, which most people don't even believe that under the Reid administration. So again, we're protecting assets. We have a mayor that ran on affordable housing, and we have the massive displacement with an unaffordable housing market. There is no accountability. And there's nothing we can do about it. She's now, you know, at the forefront of basically because of Biden, because the Democrats need control of the Senate. And Georgia was so important that she's sitting in a position of privilege. She will not be removed despite the reality of what's happening in Georgia. And those Atlanta placements are going to impact Tri-Cities, South Fulton, rural Georgia. It is everybody there. And the North Side, y'all are already paying for it. You pay for it in taxes.
Robbie, this was we needed these few minutes afterwards. And normally I don't go over time, but I know we needed to kind of talk through this today. You know, I just want to thank everybody for, I kept her banner up. Thank everybody for joining us today on this broadcast. This was great, Robbie.
I'm excited about next week too. And who's going to come on.
Yeah, keep them coming, right?
Imagine everybody says, you know, the same thing, that it's a two-party crap system and so on. I mean, would that be a confirmation? I mean, let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens, y'all. Keep watching. Stay tuned. You can find Miss Robbie Caban at robbiecaban.com. You can find Mr. David Slavin right here on Facebook at Acknowledge the Divide. And I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. You can find me at tamarashealey.com. Same time next Saturday. Join us. More candidates to come. It's going to continue to heat up and get quite interesting over here. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you, Robbie.
Ciao.